Coming up today on JBYC, Hyperloop or HyperPOOP.
The USA sucks butt at public transit.
And I'm going to talk about Trolleys in San Francisco and how they met their decline.
All that and more on today's episode of JBYC. Why can't I do this one? JBYC.
0 for 15 now.
JBYC.
0 for 15.
Jump the bus, you coward.
50! Stay above 50! Alright?
Right, a rolling the San Francisco treat.
Hey everyone, it's Monday, July 8th, 2019. I'm Bobby Frankenberger, and you're listening to episode 15 of JBYC. This is the show where three people who've been friends for longer than any of us care to remember get together and talk about what's been in our minds in the past week. Every week we have a topic or a theme, and this week's theme is public transit. Let me go ahead and introduce my co-host. I'm not here alone, I never am. And it makes it sound like I'm disappointed. Ryan's up first. Hey Ryan, what's going on?
Hello. Nothing. Hello.
Nothing at all? Well, then we'll move on to EJ, who's our other co-host on the show every week. How's it going, American Johnson?
Nice talking to you.
The Edge.
Hello. This is The Edge reporting, coming at you live.
Thanks.
I almost did the boogie thing. I don't know why.
The
I don't wanna do
bogey
that.
thing?
The boogie thing.
Coming at you
Yeah,
live,
Boogie
Boogie
2988.
Woogie? What? I don't get it.
Wow, you really don't know about YouTube, huh?
No.
Boogie 2988. His introduction.
I don't know what you're talking about either.
All right. Well, I guess I'm the only one who's cool.
I guess
No,
so.
that's not true. I'm
No,
not
that's not
cool
how
for
this is
knowing who
working.
Boogie is. I'm actually jealous of you.
Yeah. All right, so.
You're not going to explain?
I'm not gonna
Boogie
explain.
2988 is a YouTuber. He's very popular, kind of obnoxious, centrist kind of guy. But he says coming at you live through the power of the internet at the beginning of every episode of this show.
Sounds familiar. Sounds vaguely familiar.
Nope.
So a lot
What
of
do you
people.
got for us today, Bob?
A lot of people in my extended sphere have been dying recently. Like ultra extended. No reason to get sad. I guess somebody's sad, but it's like great grandparents, really old people, stuff like that. But there's been funerals going on in the past couple months, and one thing I've noticed, which I think is weird, is that whenever you're talking to somebody about someone else that has died, and no one that is connected to this issue is in the room, they always lower their voice. They're always like, because I was talking to so and so the other day, and their aunt died recently.
Why are we having this conversation with the
Yeah.
Harlem Globetrotters playing in the background?
Yeah.
So
It's
weird.
just it was.
Wrong with you?
I'm uncomfortable.
Is there something else I should be playing?
A dirge?
Well,
Do you have like a dun,
look.
dun,
It's
dun.
just I noticed this weird social convention of people just always lowering their voice whenever they mention that someone has died. I think it's strange. I don't know. I mean, what
It's because it probably harkens back to the days of the belief in the spirits of the dead listening.
yeah. Well,
You want to have solemnitude, or else hopefully they don't hear you or something.
I think it's gossip, and we don't want to be loud about other people's business.
That's true too. Yeah.
maybe
It's
that's what
probably
it is. Because I guess I do also lower my voice whenever I'm like, because they
Talking shit? Yeah, when you're talking mad shit, you be quiet.
Yeah, so and so's they pooped their pants the other day in the grocery
That's not
store.
embarrassing. Try better.
Bob, he might just be your great grandpa, but he's your mom's grandpa.
That's
and you
true.
don't want your mom to hear you saying that you don't care that your great grandpa died, like you just said 10 minutes ago.
So
5 minutes ago.
So I do care. For whom the bell tolls,
We
something
don't, it's
like
okay.
that. But yeah, so we're talking about public transit today, guys, and
Not-
No man's
Dead,
an
not
island
being
upon
dead.
himself. Whatever.
yeah. And before we get started into the formal segments that we're going to be doing, have you guys what do you guys think about these? Have you guys ever used or seen these I don't know what they're called, but they're the cars that just get parked on the side of the street and you just walk up and jump in one and drive off and then leave
Like
it
the-
somewhere.
Oh, I
Wheel
know.
guys?
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
have
yeah.
those.
I rented one time, but it wasn't like as simple as you say. The one I used, I mean.
Well, you don't just
don't have
you
cars.
don't just
One
open
in
the door and
Philadelphia.
take the car whenever you feel like it.
Well, I don't. There's probably different versions of this now, but when I was in Philadelphia, I used it was like a car share program, where you can rent somebody's car, rent somebody's personal car basically, and the way that worked was I had to go and they gave me directions to where some mailbox was in some creepy part of Philadelphia, and then I had to get the keys out of the mailbox and then go find the car. But it was actually more convenient than renting from a rental dealership.
That's weird.
I don't know if that's the same thing as what you're talking about, though.
We have
like somebody's
these
personal car.
three-wheel like motorized bikes around Cola, which you can just get on and then park in another motorized bike place.
Do we
So you can
really?
go get your groceries.
Three-wheeled?
I need to go
Yeah,
into
they have
the
like a
city
they have a
one
cart
day.
in the front, and so you can go like do your groceries or like do whatever, and then come right back and not have to have a car.
Huh? Are they like
so the
scooters?
wheels are in the front, like a
It's two on front.
the two
one
wheels are in the
back.
front.
Yeah,
Oh, so it's like a sitlow, like a Vietnamese sitlow. That's interesting.
motorized
Those
thing.
are kind of
Have you ridden them? Are they fun?
motorized.
No, I have a car. Why would I do that?
Are they like
this
scooters?
is a great lead-in for our conversation today.
No, yeah, they're motorized bikes, kind of.
Are they
They're not-
inexpensive
Electric
enough?
bikes or are they
I
gas
think
engine?
it's per hour, and it has to be inexpensive enough to be used by the students because they keep on using them.
So do they have like a kiosk? Like, can I
They're
just
gone now,
just
too.
insert money, or do I have to have like a
It's on the
prepaid
thing.
card or something?
I don't know about that, but it's on the thing.
What I
So
want to
you have
know
to
is
have-
next time I'm in
I
Colombia,
don't know.
can I just go and ride one for fun?
Well, yes.
Okay.
But I don't know how. Also, I don't think they are here anymore because I think they're gone.
That's a shame because they
we
had.
had
I've been
them for a
speaking
couple
in the
years.
present tense this whole time, Rye Dog.
Yeah, well,
That's a real letdown.
happens.
When I go to Indianapolis every year, they have these things there. I forgot what they're called. Something probably like blue car or green motor or something. But they,
Trying to protect the environment, those
Yeah.
losers,
so they
slackers.
I wanted to use one while I was there, but there's all this rigmarole you have to go through of like signing up for an account and getting a prepaid card. And they have these kiosks around the city, but the
Yeah.
cards can be just dropped off and left anywhere, I think.
Right.
And I was like, well, I guess I don't have one of those, so I'm not gonna do it. So
When I went to Taiwan, they had like a free. It wasn't free. They had a bicycle rental program, but you had to basically. The kiosks were very confusing, and you had to have like a green card or something. You couldn't just be a visitor, which was weird. I didn't
You
understand
mean
that.
like a national.
I had to have a phone
green
number.
card.
That's what it was. You have to have a Taiwanese phone number.
oh,
And it was like, so traveler, like tourists can't use their bicycle program. It was awful. But fortunately, I had a friend who just let me use his card. But, in San Francisco, I think, and also I think Seattle had this issue too. They have these electric, like scooter, like razor scooter kind of things.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but it enraged the public and they were like throwing them off of bridges and,
It enraged the public because people are leaving them in the middle of the sidewalk and shit like that.
okay, that would,
People
That's
were just leaving them everywhere, and people were just like, and also I imagine some people are just mad anyway. But San Francisco in particular is because they were just being left everywhere, and people were like,
Right.
fuck this thing.
yeah.
the tragedy of the privately owned commons.
Sort of, yeah.
I suppose, yeah. Let's do this.
Dang it, Bobby, that's exactly what we don't want.
So, have you guys? Speaking of Elon Musk,
His bump right.
yeah,
Who spoke of Elon Musk?
we did last week. It was
Do
like-
not utter that name in my presence.
Hark.
So speaking of
saying
Elon
Hark more
Musk,
often.
you guys heard of this Hyperloop thing that he has talked about for years and years?
His
Sure,
scam?
but tell us
His
about
latest
it.
scam?
His latest scam. I don't know
it the
about that.
latest
I don't know
one?
about that with the Hyperloop. But do you know what the Hyperloop
Yeah,
is?
it's not his latest scam. He's had new scams since then, so I redact that statement.
So do you know what the Hyperloop is? What do you know about the
Vaguely.
Hyperloop?
Yeah, it's like the bank. You put money in the bank thing, the tube, and it.
That was a good one.
That was a good
Not
one.
so sure about.
Had, took a little experimentation.
Yeah.
You put the money in the thing and then it sucks it up. He wants to do that with people and kill them. He wants to destroy
Yes, he wants to kill
destroy
people.
major corridors of major cities.
It's a super expressway, right?
Yeah, so the idea is basically normal transportation in your car, in a train, or anything like that. One of the largest fuel inefficiencies in any kind of transportation in the air, like in the atmosphere, is not just air resistance, like your car is going through the air, but also like turbulence in the air. Basically, the air is a big problem that we have to travel through because it makes things happen more slowly, friction and turbulence from the air and stuff like that.
But what if we got rid of the air and created what science calls a vacuum?
Yeah, so one day on a
Go on.
one day on a CBD vape trip.
Stop it. I hate that face.
Yeah, that's a weird face. Don't make that face. One day one day, Elon Musk decided that we should just get rid of the air. If the air's the problem, let's get rid of the air. So it's just like you're talking about. The difference between a bank tube, you know what we're talking about. You old banks, I don't think they use them anymore. Do this anymore. But with the old banks, you'd drive up and you'd put your information in the little capsule and you'd stick it in and you press the button and it would go foom, and it would shoot it up a tube to the bank teller. And that used negative pressure. It would like start a motor and suck the air out. But the difference between that and the Hyperloop, because the Hyperloop is kind of like that for trains, where the train would be the capsule and people would be in it and they would be pushed along this
like a monorail.
almost just like a
It's not a
monorail.
rail. It's a zero rail, a null rail.
Well, many of the versions of this do
There has
have
to be a
rails.
rail.
Yeah, many of the versions of this do have rails. So the idea is that
The less fun ones.
the difference is that this is a fully enclosed loop that is evacuated of air completely. And that's basically the only thing you need. This generic system has been theorized for a long time and thought about for a long time. It's just called a vac train. It's just the tunnel is just evacuated of air, and that eliminates the air resistance, right? So presumably you could even just drive a car. You could even have a road inside one of these and drive your car along it, and it would be incredibly fuel efficient, right? Because there'd be no air providing resistance and turbulence to make your fuel consumption less efficient.
Isn't this what they had in the Jetsons?
Yes.
Yeah, they did, except for people.
Individual. Yeah.
So Tesla and SpaceX, it's a joint operation.
It's also, I think, in Futurama. I think specifically they have the bank.
They have.
Remember in
two for
Futurama they had the
people.
it was like specifically the bank capsules, and then people got into it.
Yeah.
It was like a joke. So a lot of people think Elon Musk
Yeah.
actually stole this idea from Futurama.
What? Yeah. Anyway, so back in 2013, he proposed the idea. He wanted to make a route from L.A. to San Francisco, following roughly the Interstate 5 route, and it would have cars that would be in it, evacuated of air. There would be pressurized passenger capsules, and they would get up to speeds of 760 miles per hour for a 35-minute trip from L.A. to San Francisco, and the cost estimate for building it would have been like $6 to $10 billion. $6 billion on the low end, what they proposed, and other people, experts, thought it would definitely go over budget and be closer to maybe $10 billion. It never went anywhere because of
when can we start debunking this, Bob? I'm starting to get real anxious.
so it never went anywhere.
I'm having so much anxiety. I'm trying to be patient.
A lot of the reason it never went anywhere was because of there was no political will to do it, regulations and whatnot. And so eventually Elon Musk just open sourced the whole idea. He said, here's all the idea that we had. Here's the plans that we had. Anybody can take this and run with it. And so the question is, should we be like 760 miles per hour? That's getting from point A to point B that quickly is pretty good, right? So what's the problem? Should we be doing it?
No.
I'm gonna be truthful,
Good
and a lot
point.
of that I zoned out of because there was a lot of vacuum and tube and numbers and things and.
That's all right. That's all right. Numbers aren't your thing. But
Oh, it was also the Bobby explanation where like it was much longer.
just
You gonna
trying
take
to
that
kinda-
shit from Bobby, Ryan? You
Just
gonna
try-
take that shit from Bobby?
just trying to
No, you
lay.
do.
You let him
It's
talk
the
to
other
you
way
like that
around.
in the yard?
American. It's Ryan giving that to Bobby, not Bobby giving it to
Fight,
Ryan.
fight.
Yeah, just trying to lay.
You gonna take that shit from Ryan, Bobby?
There you go. You got it right that time. Good
He
job.
disrespected you.
Yeah, I know, and I'm trying to fight him right now, but you keep getting in the way.
Yeah, you're stupid.
my
You're
job.
the worst
I'm
fight
the
promoter
peacemaker.
ever.
You're like
I'm the peacemaker.
You're like the little
You're-
yappy dog, that runs around.
Yeah.
But you're right in the middle.
I have two big dogs though. You're both my big dogs.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're gonna fight, and you're like, yeah, fight.
Speaking of fight, I would like to fight Elon Musk over this.
Dude,
That's a
Dude
bad idea.
Snaps in the chat room says, "Why does someone need to go that fast?"
Okay, that's exactly why the Concorde failed for one thing. Remember the Concorde?
I remember
thought it-
hearing about it. I mean,
thought
I
it
know what
was
it
the
is.
Concorde
Concorde
I
jet
can't remember
that
why.
it flew at supersonic speeds. It failed
Yeah.
because it was just too expensive,
Right.
and there weren't enough
definitely.
people that wanted. Like, it wasn't enough of a value proposition to justify the expense. So, first thing is, think about how much rail, like traditional rail, you could lay for $6 to $10 billion.
Yeah,
No kidding.
I have no idea actually. Zero.
Like, hold on, what's the cost of light rail?
This is why I
done this.
zoned out because I was like, I don't actually have any way to put these numbers into perspective. I don't know where this thing is going. I don't know how big
All right,
it is.
so
or-
typical light rail system is between $15 to $100 million per mile. All right, which is
Right.
not cheap. Don't get me wrong, but like what? Let's say 6 billion. We have some more zeros there. Divided by, we'll just go 50 million. That seems right in the middle. That's like, wait a minute.
It's here. We'll do some
100
math.
numbers
So
that
what
you
was
expected?
I think I did the wrong billion.
so
You do the
said
math, Bobby. I'm the
so
worst
what
at
was the
math.
math per? What was the cost per mile? Let's do this right now. We're doing it
All right, the range for light rails is 15 to $100 million per mile.
per mile.
15 to 100. I think 100 million is is pretty excessive. Let's say, I don't know, 20 or 30 million, 40 million.
Well, hold
What's
on.
the middle
if it
between
gives
them?
you a range, don't just decide that it's too excessive
Yeah,
all of a sudden.
we'll do the
Like,
range.
All right, well, it says 15 to 100 million.
15 million times. It is 383 miles from San Francisco to Los Angeles.
Right.
So on the low end, that would be $5.7 billion. It sounds like a familiar $6 billion number. On the high end of 100 million, it would be
a much bigger
$38
number.
billion. So I don't know that the.
Oh wait, hold on. I do want to point something out here. These are North American light rail projects, which put a pin in that because we're going to talk about that later.
Well,
There's a
this is
reason that
also
North
a
American-
Hyperloop. So
I know. But I'm just saying, Seattle's is the most expensive is at $179 million per mile. This has to do with the real estate costs too, though. That's like probably the
No,
biggest
absolutely.
cost,
You're
because-
absolutely right about that. That's where some of this cost is coming, is because it's taking up land. It's possibly displacing people.
Right. So I think that might be where the major cost comes in. But yeah, I mean, I'm just saying it's like also the other thing is it would be a privately owned thing, so Musk
Yeah.
could charge whatever the hell he wants for it. And the way he's got it set up, he wants to do these like 30-second what do you call it? Cycles. He wants to have a 30-second cycle.
Oh, you're
30-second
talking about
headway.
like as you get passengers on?
Yes, he said that, not me. 30-second headway, and the capsules will only because his whole idea is let's get them through real fast, but they'll be small, but they'll go really fast. So you'll have
Right.
30 people in one car, in one train, or whatever you want to call it, and then they'll leave every 30 seconds. How are you gonna get 30 people into a train in 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
one of the problems with the technology is you can't put a train is very long. You can make a train very long. That's the advantage of a train, and then you could put a bunch of people on one.
That would stress me out to ride that thing. I've ridden the in DC, whatever that thing is called, the subway there,
Metro.
the metro,
Yeah.
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 And that stresses me out when those doors open. I'm like scrambling to get on there because I'm like, oh my god, this door's gonna close on me. I'm gonna.
Right.
Hey, Doc, you better.
And those are the silly problems. The serious problem is the fact that it's dangerous as heck.
Yeah.
Like you can like if it depressurizes, if there's a problem and the thing depressurizes really quickly. So Musk's thing is like, oh, well, it'll be fine. We'll have oxygen masks, but the oxygen masks won't protect you from all of the fluid in your body boiling away.
Well, presumably
Like in your
you could,
like in your eyes and your.
but that's just an engineering problem,
tongue.
right? Like presumably you could come up with a way to detect some sort of problem and then isolate the chamber and then repressurize the actual loop in that section.
Yeah, you could, but that's not what Musk is. Musk is not proposing those solutions. Musk is proposing oxygen masks.
He's an idea man.
You know what I'm saying?
EJ.
Yeah.
He's
So this one I have up is 6 to 8 people per capsule, 3 capsules per train, 30-second
Oh, that's even worse.
turnaround on peak time. Only 13 pounds for a ticket though.
Come on. 6 to 8 people per tube, and it'll be. I don't know. I mean, I'm just
No, it's
incredibly skeptical.
Nuts. The economy.
I'm not
is
saying it's impossible.
nuts. I'm not
It
saying
doesn't
it's
make sense
impossible,
though.
But
Yeah.
I
6
think
to
the
8 people-
technology is probably viable, but you have to like the use cases he's proposing are weird. He wants to like destroy major corridors of like major populated areas. Because I'm not sure about this one. I don't have a source on this, but I remember hearing that don't they have to be kind of more straight? Like they can't handle turns as well as a.
Well, if you're going 760
rail line?
miles an hour, then you
wanna
presumably
make
you'd
it
have to.
gradual.
But maybe not. You know, like it probably, perhaps, I don't know. I'm not an aeronautical engineer or
tubologist?
whatever that would be called, but
A tubesman,
a tubesman. I am not a tubologist.
Yeah.
But
a tuber.
the one thing that I think though is first, so they haven't done a lot of testing. The most testing that they've done is some 1 mile loop out in Nevada or something, or maybe it's a 2 mile loop out in Nevada, and they've gotten it up to 260 miles per hour. And they can't get it. Probably some of the fact that they can't get it up any faster is because of the short loop. But still, there's some skepticism on whether or not you can get it to go faster, because you have to eliminate the friction of the rail, right? Which there are ways to do that, easy ways to do that, like Maglev systems or something like that, right? But at that point, you got to wonder. So I was listening to this, and they're like, oh, maglev, so that's what you would do. You would magnetically levitate the train off of the track so that there's no friction at all. And then something triggered in my head as I was listening to that, and I thought, well, we can't even get like normal maglev trains in this country.
Right.
Like
right.
we don't have the political will to do that. What makes you think we're going to get a Hyperloop built?
Yeah.
And
I mean, one of the things about railway, like America has one of the worst NIMBY problems in the world.
Yes.
Like
Oh,
the not
yeah.
in my backyard thing, and that's a major problem with like this kind of a. I mean, I am all for public transportation, but America's uniquely like culturally opposed to it. We'll talk about that more.
let's talk about it
bit,
now.
but,
Let's do it.
It's time for the
Okay.
edge.
You know, kind of a share.
Before
Yeah.
Japanese high-speed trains are tested at 248, so they're basically at that speed.
Yeah, exactly. And so presumably eliminating the air would get you up to those speeds. But, you know, like let's try for the other technology that has already been tested and used
That's what
in
I'm saying.
real life.
Yeah, do the bullet train. Yeah.
But
America,
yeah,
what are you
so I thought let's
Technical problems.
let's move on to since we're already talking about venturing into the territory of what EJ is wanting to talk about
There
today.
goes the rest of the episode.
Then
I'm glad you brought up Japan, Ryan. There, see how
Okay.
I handled that.
Mm-hmm.
Because Asia. You want to hear some interesting things about Asia
I
and
don't
America?
I don't
and
suppose we
America,
have
North
much of a
America?
choice. Go for it.
We do not.
So,
We are a captive audience.
public transportation ridership in Asia from 2012 to 2017 increased by 9 billion riders to 26 billion. Europe has about 10 billion riders. Latin America has about 6 billion riders. Okay. And Latin America, remember, has a lot of developing countries. Asia has a lot of developing countries, right? North America has a lot of wealth, a tremendous amount of wealth. And we have the fewest rail passengers per year. 3.7 billion. 3.7 billion of the 53 billion worldwide. So
So you're saying 3.7? There are 53 billion. That 3.7 is how much we contribute to that total
yes,
rail
53
passengers.
billion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get this
Asia
out of the way
currently
first.
contributes 26 billion. They've grown 9 billion. So they've grown in the last 5 years by more than double of our total.
Okay, let's get this out of
In
the way
North America.
first, because I know you're gonna want to touch on it and might not get to it. It's because
What's that?
America's so big.
Well, I mean, Asia's huge. China's huge. And
I
they
know.
have like
That's gonna be the
Yeah, no.
primary thing, because it's
Yeah.
one nation versus individual nations doing their individual programs.
Right.
I'm not saying I agree. I'm just saying that's the primary thing you're gonna get pushback about this.
Right.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing, and I bet that pushback is going to come from Americans, because my
yes.
whole argument is that it's the culture of America that stands in our way, the United States specifically. So like, and y'all jump in anytime, but like 100 years ago, we had the envy of the world. Our public transit was like the envy of the world, and everyone was coming to the United States to look at our train system and our subway systems and that sort of thing and learn from us, right?
Yeah. Because we were the best.
And so we were the best. Yeah, we were the best at one thing at least. In the 1950s, after World War II, that's when things really started to diverge. I'm really simplifying this a lot.
Good.
I did more research for this episode than any other previous episode.
Yeah.
He wrote
I'm proud
so
of myself.
much into the document. Like, it's so much more than usual.
Yeah, yeah. But so like in the 1950s, like Europe and starting, Asia got more advanced more in like the 60s and 70s, but Europe started to spend a lot more money on their public transit systems, and that was like the direction they decided to go in. But the United States decided to invest in our highway systems, and there are a lot of reasons for that, and a lot of it has to do with car dealerships. And you'll find like every time you read any stories about the development of public transportation in the United States or the degradation of it, the car companies are always involved.
Yeah, car companies are like they have like crazy lobby power.
Yeah.
And like and I'm not even really talking about the car companies. I just want to reiterate, I'm talking about dealerships, like the people who sell the cars.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have so much control over that, and anyway, yeah.
And then, well, no, that's a sidetrack, but it is interesting to talk about that because the car dealerships are also absolutely like a cartel, because the way that you get a car dealership license in the United States is so absurdly corrupt and weird. You have to basically inherit a license to sell cars, or you have to like graft millions of dollars to somebody.
Yeah, and
When
then you
it's
have
so bad if
and
you
then
ever
you have
research
this
that.
weird control over like a region or something, and no other car dealerships are allowed to build in or
Yes.
of the same kind, or like there's weird rules about who can like hone in on your territory.
You have territory. It's like gangsterism. It's absolutely like gangsterism.
But like you said, that's
And,
that's kind of off track a little bit.
Well,
it's
okay,
a little
back
bit
on
off
track.
track, but it gives you an idea. I think it fleshes out this whole idea that the car companies are so completely like nefarious.
Yeah.
I was under an impression that the highway system was partial to war preparation in like Eisenhower or something like that.
Yeah,
Like
that was a
CCC.
big justification for the highway system. Yeah, was like
Okay.
military preparation and
Interstate
they wanted
preparation,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, but trains are also really good for transporting war material, you know. So and all. Yeah, I don't know.
Is it a public?
Okay.
I
it's
think
okay.
that was a
It's okay.
smokescreen.
Is it an urban legend that the interstate system was made to be a place to emergency land airplanes?
That was built into the code. Like I think every 7 miles there has to be a straight section or something.
Because that seems really weird.
I know this
too.
because I've read the entire Wikipedia discussion page on highways. Remember we talked about
I've
that. in a
never heard
previous
that
episode.
before.
I don't know exactly. I don't even know if that's still a regulation, but I think in the 50s it was like every certain number of miles they had to have a certain amount of straight highway so that planes can land on them. They think of everything, don't they?
Yeah.
So we come from the South, the three of us. We come from South Carolina, And just out of, in case you're curious, the only southern city of all southern cities to rank within the 25 cities that have good transit systems, the top 25 cities, was Houston, Texas.
Oh.
But, we also have major congestion in the South in cities like Dallas and Atlanta. So we would benefit a lot from having some kind of light rail kind of public transportation system. So, okay,
This
so
just
then...
in, Snopes, this
Yes.
is false. You do not get every 5 miles a land-in strip.
Really?
Snopes
Ooh,
says it's
that-
false.
That Wikipedia discussion channel, I want to go back and have a discussion with that.
Top of the third paragraph. Belief in this crazy idea should fail anyone's logic test. They just
Why?
called you out. They
Whoops.
just called you out, American. You're gonna
Why,
fight
though?
Snopes. You're gonna fight Snopes. We're after you.
Wow.
It sounds like a totally 1950s idea.
That also.
That's why I believed it.
I didn't. Snopes is getting a little surly lately.
Oh,
little bit.
Snopes is always an asshole.
But sorry, continue.
Okay, I hereby retract the airplane thing. Thanks, Wikipedia discussion section, for making me look like a ding dong. But so back in the 50s and 60s, the United States started to have problems with the bus systems, and like the bus systems were getting defunded. So what they did to, it's just so bad. Like, okay, for one thing, car companies or companies that benefited from cars, like companies that sold asphalt and tires and that sort of thing, they were taking over a lot of public transit infrastructure, like Trolleys, which we'll talk about in a bit with Ryan. But they were like buying up all these public transit systems and then like gutting them. And so a lot of them were getting defunded because basically they were not making enough money. So the solution was to reduce the service. And because they reduced the service, they got even fewer riders, because there's a certain critical mass with the public transit system, and frequency is more important than coverage, for one thing. So like Americans tend to look at a map and they want to see the lines on the map that say like, okay, I can take the bus from here to here. There's public transit. But Americans don't think about the frequency, which is actually much more important for getting people to use public transportation. And they say that the sweet spot really is about 15 minutes. Like a bus or a train has to come every 15 minutes or less. If they can't hit that, then it's not reliable enough for people to just casually walk out and stand at a bus stop and wait for a bus.
Yeah, that makes
Then you have to
sense.
start
I don't want to
planning
wait
around it.
longer than that.
Yeah, but our wait times in the U.S. are absurd. They're like,
Yeah.
I mean,
on the
like I know in
Gita,
Columbia,
like
South Carolina,
20,
they're over
30.
an hour. Sometimes they're 3 hours between buses. I mean, that's just absurd.
We have a new line that's much better, but it's also a smaller loop. So
Is that a new line?
That would
on-
be a-
on the
the
comet?
Soda City Connector, I think it's called. But it's
According to
still
the logic of the
one of many
article
that
that I
are-
read, that's actually a better system though, because that's what this article I said said that it was by I'll find the source in a minute, but the whole point of the article was that if a bus system or a train system is struggling, it's better to close down lines and increase frequency, and then build it up slowly from a smaller core. Because if
Yeah, that
you
makes sense.
keep the line system the same and reduce the frequency, that's just like a vicious cycle. It's like a snowball of death, a death spiral. So
Yeah.
so it sounds like Columbia's actually going in the right direction based on what
a
you're
snowball of death's a snowball with like a rock in it or
Oh,
a battery.
Or a ninja star.
saying. Noted snowball expert Ryan.
Oh, I mean, just pick something bad and put it inside a snowball. You can do it too, American. Try right now.
How about a bus?
A bus inside a snowball would kill someone. Yes.
Yes. That's the next Keanu Reeves movie. And it's just called A Bus Inside a Snowball. It's directed by the guy who did
Snowball fight.
Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
I'll watch it then.
Ooh, I'll watch it. So anyway, the other problem is that because the bus system got so bad in the United States, this is kind of a chicken and egg thing, but people started to associate the bus with poor people because the only people who would use it were people who were desperate because it was such a bad system. You know what I mean? It's like a chicken and egg.
Well, that feels
So,
like
but now-
a city versus suburbs kind of thing too, which is going on at the same time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. White flight has a lot to do with it. White flight has a lot to do with it. Because white flight, if you'll remember, is whenever white people were leaving the cities to go to the suburbs, and then they were, requiring themselves to own a car. Like that's when car culture, the suburbs were like car oriented. So all the white people had cars, and the only people who were using the bus were non-whites in a lot of places. So that also had kind of a racist, classist component to it, an intersection of bad attitudes, if you will. And so nowadays, most Americans, I think, at least I mean, there are exceptions to this rule. So like there are cities like New York and Seattle that have really good public transit. But most Americans and most places see the public transportation system as kind of a social welfare program. So it's like the buses and the trains are for poor people, and that makes them not want to fund them, because especially Republicans, because there's also a strong party divide between the Democrats and the Republicans, where the Democrats tend to favor public transit more, but because it's seen as a social. But see, that's the thing. I'm not letting the Democrats off here. The Democrats have a shitty attitude about this too, because they see the public transportation system as a social welfare program, and that feeds into the Republicans.
That kind of like feeding the
rhetoric.
narrative, right? So
yeah, exactly. So the Republicans are saying we need to cut this social welfare program, and the Democrats are saying no, the social welfare program is really important for poor people. But the fact is, it's important. It would benefit all of us. Like everybody benefits from having good public transportation.
Yeah.
So I guess that's my tirade.
That wasn't tirade. You were actually very composed that whole time.
Wow, I'm surprised. I'm off caffeine, so I don't know what's happening in my brain. I'm just bubbly. I'm bubbling.
So what do we? So I think that you covered it pretty well with public transit and like buses and whatnot. What about the how does ride sharing and whatnot feed into this and potentially change the problem?
Like are you talking about Uber and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Yeah, I mean Uber's basically like a non-solution. It's like okay, this is the other thing. This goes back
What's
to the Hyperloop
house
too.
thing? I'm forgetting that you rent out your home for like the weekend.
Airbnb.
Or
Airbnb.
Airbnb
Yeah.
is the same exact thing too. It's just destroying markets.
It's not just bad for the people, like it's bad for the environment for one thing, because instead of having like here's something I learned when I was working in the public transportation activist scene in Colombia. Like as far as the environment's concerned, the environment doesn't care if you have a huge like 60 passenger bus or a little 10 passenger shuttle. They really don't. There's not really a huge difference in terms of environmental output,
Right.
like in terms of carbon output. So you can have a 60 passenger bus and it's almost, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but if on large scales of numbers, that giant bus is like basically the same footprint as like one or two normal cars, right? So if you have 50 Ubers going around or a 50 passenger bus, obviously the 50 passenger bus is going to be preferable. But the other thing is that Uber,
But it's not an all or nothing thing. Like you can't. It's not one or the other. That's a false dichotomy there. Like you can have both.
Yeah, but people don't use public transit if they can use an Uber, and the people who use Uber tend to have more income, right? So then you have people with higher income not using the public transportation.
So it's feeding
it
into
creates
that
a class
problem.
divide.
Yeah, feeding into that problem that you were talking about before.
Right.
Well, and then it's also a weird gig economy with very little, how to put it, safety measures. So it's all sorts.
Let me
of
put it this
bad
way.
in that
I do
regard.
think that
Bus,
it's a concern.
bus
but
drivers
it's a
tend to be
different issue,
unionized.
right?
Bus drivers tend to be unionized. Train engineers tend to
Right.
have strong unions. You're not going to see a lot of gig economy workers unionizing, at least not yet. Hopefully that'll happen. But yeah, I mean, it's like Uber presents itself as a solution, but it's actually feeding into the narrative, like you said, Bobby, and it's also just making things worse, and it's making it less likely for us to actually develop actual workable public transportation.
You did Uber for a bit, didn't you?
I did in
Was it
Charleston, South Carolina.
But
Terrible.
It was pretty terrible. I got the worst thing that happened to me was I got a ticket. It wasn't even a ticket. I got a what do you call it? The opposite of it's not a felony, a misdemeanor. I got a misdemeanor citation for picking somebody up at the airport, because the Uber app just sent me to the airport, and I was like, okay, I'll just drive to the airport. And then a cop stopped me and gave me a misdemeanor for operating a taxi cab without a license, which sounds pretty bad, actually. Like that sounds like pretty bad. And I had no idea that it was against the law or anything. Uber didn't notify me or anything. They just sent me to the airport and got me the citation. They paid for the ticket, right?
Oh, so
but
it's
but I wanted to fight it. I wanted to go to court and fight it. So I was like, "You're not gonna." They of course they won't hire a lawyer or anything like that to help me. They didn't
Right.
give me
Yeah.
kind of legal counsel. So all they did was pay for the ticket, and I have that on my record now. So I have kind of like this bullshit criminal record thing where when I went to rent an apartment like 2 years later in North Carolina, it flagged up on my freaking criminal background check, and it delayed like 3 days because they had to like,
That's
I have to
crazy.
check with my manager about this.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I do agree that with the things that you guys have said about ride sharing, but I don't think that ride sharing is, in a perfect world, I think this whole ride sharing idea could be fine, but I think injecting it the way it has been injected into specifically the public transportation system in America, broken as it is what the problem is. Like first
Well, that's
of all,
why I started out by
Uber and
saying-
Lyft, they never took any care to start doing it. They just started doing it.
They were bullies about it. They were like
Yeah.
breaking laws, and they were just didn't like with me. I'm a perfect example of that. Yeah, they were totally like throwing their money at the problem to fix
Full
it.
disclosure to everybody who's watching and listening, I would like to out myself as a total hypocrite. I will be using Lyft quite a lot when I go to Gen Con in Indianapolis in a few weeks.
Well, so this is why I was saying it's a cultural problem in the United States, because like Asia, Vietnam, for instance, we have rideshare. They have like a Grab car, and they have some new ones.
Sure.
And it like integrates into the city. But Vietnam also has amazing public transportation for
That
developing
was going to be
countries,
my next
especially.
question: is are there cities in the world, not in the United States, but in the world outside, that have good public transportation, buses, trains, and stuff like that, who also have things like Uber or Lyft, and it
Yeah,
works?
most of them. Europe has a lot of ride sharing.
Okay.
Asia has a lot of ride sharing. I don't know about Latin America. That's the place I probably know the least about, or Africa. But from my research and my experience, yeah. I mean, I just know from living in Asia, it integrates really well. And so it's like the taxis and the Grab cars and the Uber cars and stuff, they tend to be hanging out like at the outlets of mass transit that, like wherever lines end and there's not a lot of service from there.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it just naturally, you can have a healthy kind of ecosystem where the stuff kind of integrates. But the thing that's stopping North America and the United States specifically from having that healthy ecosystem is our cultural attitudes, and it sucks. And I'm going to now transition to Ryan's topic by giving one last little story about, hold on. Okay, Trolleys. So Nashville, southern town. The South used to have an amazing public transit system in terms of buses and trolleys and streetcars. And in most southern cities, in Charleston, in Columbia, and obviously in Nashville, all kinds of southern cities, you can find streetcar rails that have been like long abandoned. So we used to have
had
these
ours
amazing
pulled
streetcar
up,
systems. And stuff.
I don't know, a couple years ago.
Oh, they pulled them up?
Well, they pulled
See?
them up, but they excavated them. Like they were covered up for some reason. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of these southern cities, they used to have these really awesome trolley and streetcar systems. So two quick stories about this. There was no, wait, hold on. I'm getting two stories confused here. Well, okay. All right. One of them, I had the source, but I seem to have lost it. But so historically, these car manufacturers, like I said, would buy up the trolley systems and then basically dismantle them intentionally because they wanted to create more demand for automobiles. Recently, a more recent example is in Nashville, which is where they were trying to build a light rail system, and the Koch brothers financed activists to go from door to door and get locals to vote against the light rail, and instead they wanted to so they wanted to get rid of the light rail. They wanted to get rid of a traffic easing tunnel, right? A tunnel that would make traffic less dense, and they wanted to get rid of new bus routes, all financed by the Koch brothers to vote against this stuff under the guise of lowering taxes and shrinking the government. So again, this whole like false narrative about public transportation being a social welfare program, even though this would demonstrably make everybody's lives better, especially that tunnel, right?
Yeah, that one really sticks out as like a what?
Yeah, and the Koch brothers specifically produce gasoline. They make asphalt, tires, and automobile parts with their companies. So, yeah, so that I think leads. So that's a major reason that the trolleys got dismantled. And now Ryan's going to talk about trolleys,
Yeah,
which
let's
were
do that.
dismantled by hypocritical right-wing shitheads.
Here
Okay.
goes.
Everybody, do the robot.
So last week I found on our Ask Historians subreddit for Asking Historians, as you might imagine,
Nice.
a response to I read about the demise of streetcars in the U.S. was due to conspiracy by GM and other auto manufacturers. Is this true? And so the guy at the top that's apparently writing a book about it says, "No, I'll note in San Francisco particularly, no, it's not true." Now we'll post that right there.
I've never heard
on.
of this conspiracy idea at all. There's a conspiracy about trolleys, or alleged conspiracy?
Well, American just shared the modern equivalent of it. Like there is actual proof of this kind of thing happening.
Sure, okay.
But
yeah.
the idea was that the original like 1926 like removal of trolleys is because of the auto manufacturers. This
Right,
guy's
okay.
position is two-part, where buses are just insanely more efficient and they don't
Yeah,
get
that's
stuck
true.
in different places.
Yeah.
But also his other part was that these were being only run by real estate agents, and they were trying to sell real estate. They didn't really care about the trolleys and moving them around. So once there wasn't any like reason to like sell that ad space, they were like, no, forget it, we're done. And I just think that's so like American in its own way, where it's like, oh, okay. The trolleys, which were, and in this thing, like there's some big maps. I'll pull one up right now.
Are trolleys
these-
more...
These things were going all over the dang place, like many cities. And I don't know how easy it is to see that, but it's in the link. They're going everywhere and for like hours of like movement. And so by what do they say in this? Like 40 years later, no, 1947. So not even 40 years later, 20 years later, the map is much smaller. So this is not going to work, but let's do it. So like all of these are now buses, the dotted lines. So the trolley lines are only basically the major inner tiny parts of the city, and then everything else has been taken by buses because the real estates are just like, we don't need this. We don't care. Streetcars, trolleys are streetcars. Gurion, debt brute. So I just think it's interesting, especially now that we just came out of a perfect example of like the modern Republicans actually doing this whole thing of how this classically is more just like, oh yeah, we just don't want to spend the money. We're just trying to sell real estate.
So,
well, because the streetcars specifically were originally like the earliest streetcars were basically built to bring people from the suburbs to the city, right?
Yeah.
And it was a way to sell suburbs, right?
That first line was definitely doing that far out. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the way they say it, like the owner of Pacific Electric, Henry Huntington, was a real estate magnate who made his money by building suburban subdivisions, places like Huntington Beach, Huntington Park, San Marino, etc., with that money. And then in a Pacific Electric's case, the streetcar system actually operated at a loss for much of its life, and it was the real estate development that kept their trains running, not the other way around.
Right. Yeah. So the whole point was to sell real estate. So you build the line, and then you can sell the houses.
Yeah.
The line services.
Mm-hmm. I think that's comically backwards American bullshit.
well, it's like creating the demand, right? It's like you.
Well, it's like getting people into your houses and then like giving them the only way to get from their house to work.
I think that's kind of
car.
the way that you're supposed to play SimCity too.
Probably.
You build the roads and then you put the houses around the roads because.
But the crucial point here is that once they sold all the houses, they dismantled the rail systems. They were like,
yeah,
fuck you.
Well, like once buses were more
house.
efficient and they had buses doing it instead, they're just like, okay, well, we don't need these anymore. We're not gonna pay for them. Someone else can do this.
Yeah, and it is true that buses are more like flexible and.
Yeah. That's the big thing this guy talks about. Where like, yeah, like a trolley is very obviously stuck in a rut, as it were, and if there's construction or something, it can't go around a block or something like that. So
right.
From my understanding, the big advantage of a trolley nowadays, the only reason they would build one is if there's a lot of like mountains and stuff. Then trains and trolleys and stuff. Well, yeah, from what I understand, they're better at moving things uphill like more efficient
Well,
at moving things uphill.
I do think of like those like diagonal ones that like the box is made diagonally, so it only goes up and down a hill kind of thing.
Those have the funniest name. I forgot what those are called. I love the name of those things. I'm
They
gonna
have
try
a
to find
specific
it.
name. I just always thought that like
Yeah.
there was like a trolley as well, but okay.
So trolleys.
Funicular. It's a
Funicular.
funicular.
I'm going
Yeah.
to take the funicular up.
I wrote a whole song about funiculars last time I wrote a funicular.
The funny
So-
thing
so-
about
Right,
trolleys-
Take a ride on my
So buses-
spectacular
buses
funicular.
are more. So buses are more efficient than a trolley. I would have thought. Don't they have those trolleys that
at distance.
attach?
It's
to,
kind of like I was
a-
saying earlier.
an electrical
that
line?
When you're
Yeah, but that's only good
Yeah.
like in a certain smaller area. Like when you're going from one city to another, like these trolleys were. They were going inner city. That's a bus is 100 times more efficient than that. I just made up a number.
there's also the fact that every time you want to move a route for a trolley or a streetcar, you have to dig up freaking
You
rail
don't. You
and
just
lay more
can't.
rail.
Like yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big problem with the streetcars. So buses are like, yeah, they are superior in a lot of ways for a lot of situations. But
I think
the-
within a city, it's probably still efficient to have a trolley kind of system. Like or nowadays a light rail is
subway.
what you use. Yeah.
yeah,
subway,
right, or light rail, yeah. And they're building a light rail here in Hanoi, and it's right outside my window, but they won't open the damn thing. They keep running
Is
the
that
trains.
the one that
for
always
months
makes
now.
noise?
Yeah, they
Those
haven't
construction
been running
noise?
it lately. It's like delayed majorly.
So
but
what,
they have
when
the
you
trains
say
on there.
you keep saying light rail, is that different than a trolley system?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Light rail.
a light rail is a train, a choo-choo
Yeah.
train.
So is that like an like the
Good
E
job,
train,
Nick.
like the elevated trains in cities like Chicago and stuff?
That's probably a light
there's-
rail, yeah.
It can
think.
be, but like I think Chicago's still like. Well, actually, I think that the E is a light rail. Actually,
I think the distinguishing between light rail and heavy rail is for like
That's not a
cargo
word,
and stuff.
distinguation.
yeah, he made up a word.
Distinguish,
I was just gonna let it go.
distinction. The distinction.
I'm gonna say distinguation.
I'm
from
forgetting
now on.
English. The distinction between. Shut up. The distinction between
And
heavy
all
rail and light
The
rail is heavy rail is made
distinguation
for
of the
cargo.
transportation.
This is
I
my
assume
distinguated
They're
funicular.
called trams as well, but I know them as trolleys. Did you guys want to talk about the trolley problem as well?
Yeah, sure.
can.
Why not? I love philosophy.
Actually, the trolley problem relates to the problem that America faces
oh my god.
with public transportation.
You
Ryan,
know,
why don't you
what-
explain
You know, we
briefly-
need something on the soundboard. We need an EJ hates America alert.
I can make one of those.
Yeah, we need
I
to
would
get
lovingly craft one of those.
those.
I mean, I don't- Here's the thing.
Uh-huh.
Ryan, tell us what the trolley problem is.
Yeah,
And then I'll
okay.
explain
Let's do
what
that.
I mean.
It's a basic ethics problem where you have a trolley which you're inside and you have a lever and you get to pick between two tracks. And the most basic one is that there's one person on one track and there's several people on another track. But maybe you have some kind of personal connection to that one person. You don't know those strangers on the other side. Which one do you go down? You have to kill someone.
Yeah, the original trolley problem, yeah, is literally just there's one person on a track and there are 5 workers or anybody, a family
Look
of
at that
people could be
diagram.
on another track. And so the track right now and the 2 tracks have a switch and you could switch it from one to the other. The track right now is set to go.
He's saying what I just said.
No, I know,
You hear
but
this,
there's
American?
hang in there because there's an important distinction about how it
Yeah,
was
but
originally.
Bobby's saying it this time, Ryan.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Ask, no, I can't explain something mid explanation. I have to start over. It's a eccentricity of my brain. Okay. So anyway, the distinction.
Yeah, that is a distinguation between your brain
yeah.
and Ryan's brain.
The distinguation of the mentalation of the way everything works. So the distinction is that the track right now is set to run over the 5 people. So do you just let it run over the 5 people, or do you actually move it, change the track yourself to hit the one person? And so, because it's like Ryan was saying, it's an ethical dilemma of, do you involve yourself?
The Vulcans solved this problem, though.
Did they?
Go on.
Yeah, they said that
Don't
the
just say
famous
things and
Vulcan
then-
quote: "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few."
So
It's
you
a
run over
Vulcan
the one
proverb.
person.
They would run over the one. The Vulcan would run over the one person every damn time.
Spock might
Happily.
not. Spock was
Spock is only half Vulcan.
What if it's Shatner? If it's like
What if
someone
it's Shatner?
important?
Shatner would jump in front of the trolley.
Shatner would blow the trolley up
Yeah.
before it could run over anyone.
He
With
would
50 people on board.
What is that? Kobayashi Maru. He'd cheat
Kobayashi Ramu, yeah.
He'd hack the simulation.
Yeah.
the Gibson.
But the reason this is like the problem that's faced by America is because every one of us, when we jump into a 4-passenger car, we're facing a trolley problem. Should I drive my personal vehicle to Starbucks, or should I fund a public transportation system that would benefit everybody, even though I might suffer slightly
Yeah.
Why not
with my
both?
tax?
Do I have
Run over all
All right,
six of
Kirk.
them.
Why
Can't
not
hack
both?
this one, Kirk.
Drive your car onto the bus.
What?
I would do that. That'd be brutal. That'd be awesome. It's the bus. It's the car bus.
Anyway,
There's
this
car
is just
boats.
a dumb philosophical thing. It comes up in the show The Good Place.
1-star reviews from philosophers. Thanks, Ryan. Dumb philosophical thing.
It is actually a pretty dumb philosophy thing. Like, it serves as a thought experiment, but at the end of the day, like, it's very much like, what's the actual usage of
It's
this?
interesting in the context of psychology when they and social psychology when they've actually done surveys and asked people about this, and overwhelmingly most people choose to do nothing. And
Oh, I've heard that. Yeah, I heard where did I see that? I
no.
saw
I'm
it
sorry.
somewhere.
I'm sorry. It's the other way around. Overwhelmingly, people choose to. They say they would change it, but there have been
Yeah, because they
some-
want to feel like they have
but
choice
there,
in it. Or
yeah,
something.
but there have been some experiments that have been done to try to put people in a situation where they would do something similar, like to actually put them in, like actually having to do it, and you get a lot more people who would not do anything. And also, there's a variation of the trolley problem instead of flipping a switch.
Now we're doing variations.
There's a lot of variations of the trolley problem. Really, there are.
I'm sorry. Go on.
John Travolta moment.
Yeah, there's one in particular, which is instead of you being a person at a switch where you just switch the track, like in the picture that Ryan's showing, there's another variation where instead you're on a bridge. You're on a bridge and there's a train going on a track below the bridge, and you see on that bridge are 5 people, and the train is going to hit them. Remember, with the thought experiment, there's nothing you can do about it. That train is going to hit those
Right.
people. But
Right.
you're on the bridge with this enormously fat person. This is part of the problem, okay? I'm not fat
This is
shaming.
very body shaming.
I'm not body shaming. This is how it
No,
was.
I'm not saying you are.
But it is.
All right, so what?
You're on the train with a person, and you
This
could
is awful.
you could push them over the edge onto the track, and it would stop the train. So
Okay, a person made of cement. Sure. Yeah.
What the hell? This is the worst thought experiment ever.
So the point
It's
is that it's
just gonna have people asking a million questions.
Yeah.
The point is that it's exactly the same. You're sacrificing one person to save 5, but overwhelmingly, people choose to let the 5 people die instead of pushing someone over.
Well, yeah, it's a little bit more
bridge.
hands-on, as it were.
Right. No, that's exactly the point. That's why it's interesting in a social
See,
psychology.
they need to, if they really want to eliminate the weird thing about like taking an action or not taking an action, they need to say like there's switches in the middle, and you can move it to the left or the right. And in the middle, the train hits a nuclear bomb that destroys Earth. If you move to the left, it kills 1 person. If you move to the right, it kills 5 people. That's how you eliminate it. Because obviously, no one's going to keep it in the middle. That's like, come on.
Yeah, but right now there's just no
one's gonna
middle.
keep it in the middle.
There's no reason to make a stupid middle. There's no middle.
Yeah. There's
Okay, Jerry Seinfeld.
There's no
I-
middle.
You're just adding dumb
Where's the
third
middle?
option when there's
Why are we
no
talking
third
about
option.
No, 'cause
You don't need to add. Like, why add a third option? It's idiotic.
No, here's why, Ryan. Because when they did those studies about the trolley problem, they found out that what was influencing people was not the moral decision whether you should kill 1 or 5 people, but it was more about the metaphysical decision to make to act or not to act. So it was like more about whether the switch was on the 5 people or the 1 person, and then will you act to change destiny, or will you let destiny ride its course?
It's
that seems to
culpability.
influence
It's
people's
their
minds more.
part in it. Yeah.
Yes.
It's
So
if you
have a middle track that's like unquestionably not a good option, like
It
a
doesn't
nuclear bomb
change
that would destroy
anything.
you. It does, because you have to act. You cannot choose them. You can't choose
you have
to
to
just
act
let
anyway.
fate.
Like,
You know what? We don't
you don't.
know
not picking's an act.
we don't
No,
know
you
what
don't.
the outcome of this experiment
Oh,
that has not
oh,
been
oh.
done
Not to
would be
pick is
because
an
it hasn't
option.
it hasn't been done
you just
yet.
got real
But
philosophical, Ryan.
I hate you.
No, you did.
EJ
you blew my mind a little bit.
EJ, you're right.
To not act.
That
is
would
to act. That's
remove
true.
the issue of having to act, because you would have to act. You're right.
Right.
But
That's my
to
whole point.
Ryan's point,
I think it changes things.
that totally like bypasses the point of the thought experiment. Like you just,
And
like,
also, inaction is
Well-
action. Not pulling the lever
hold
is
on.
an action.
No, but I
It's
think
like
that
when you
here's my thing.
look
I think there's
away.
like a instinctual thing where we believe because you're right, Ryan. You're right objectively, but I think that subjectively we like have this sort of like I'm not even saying all of us, but many of us have this belief in like fate. So if we think like if I don't act, I'm just letting fate run its course.
that is
Do you know
you're
what I'm
right.
saying?
You're right, because there are people who report that I wouldn't do it because if literally they say this is just
was
the
meant
way
to
it
be.
was meant to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying you add the middle line, and that eliminates fate, because fate is like the whole planet gets destroyed.
What
No,
I'm
they
saying,
still just don't pull anything.
yeah,
It's
what
the same option.
what I'm saying though is that
No one's gonna choose the nuclear bomb. No one's gonna choose.
no,
it's
no,
not
I'm
like
saying that I
it's
think
nuclear
you're right,
bomb.
Scientists.
EJ. I think you're right that no one would choose that. They would choose, and so this would be a silly, pointless experiment to ask people about because if you would choose, no one's gonna choose the 5 people. Like,
What
why
if the
would
one person? No.
There's statistical outliers that will pick just 5 people.
You're right. Well,
What if
and
the
there's
one person's your grandma?
the one
Or
Yeah, but now you're
Captain
just doing
Janeway,
the trolley
Tuvok.
problem. You're doing exactly the trolley problem.
Now this is a meta level problem. Imagine that you've given this trolley problem to someone, and it's your grandma, and she chose the 5 people. Do you go to Thanksgiving this year? Or
Time Lord in
thinking,
'89 in the
make a
comments
choice.
said that Time Lord would choose the bomb.
but that's because
Exactly.
Time Lord knows
It's the positist solution.
what the outcome is in the future. Like, so.
I really hope we could talk about positivism on this show one day.
Well, not today.
Not today. That's a teaser.
All
I
right,
teased
don't tease me. Ooh, don't tease me. That's it for the show. So as you know, this week's theme was public transit. And if you would like to vote on what the show's future theme is going to be, you need to head on over to our Discord server where we'll have a poll up. And you'll be able to do just that. Next week's theme has already been decided by the community. And that theme is going to be...
You decide.
Oh no, we're
No.
tied
What?
between 2. We have to be the tiebreakers, guys.
Number 1.
Number 1. Oh, that's a good one. 1 or 2. I already know what they are, so you guys have.
1.
I don't know.
Okay, we're going with
I'll go
number
with
1.
number one.
Number 1,
I'll go with
it's
number
laundry. Do you want to know
What
what
was
you
number
could have
2?
had? Obligation.
look it up.
Laundry or obligation.
Yeah.
Those are the same topic in my
Yeah.
mind.
They kind of are.
I think laundry's probably better.
So we'll go with laundry.
Can we merge them and just make the topic laundry obligation?
Just if you want to talk about obligation, just
Yeah, just talk about whatever the hell you want. That's what we do.
That's our theme next week, laundry, because it'll get us more clicks. All right, so send us your stories and topics and prompts and everything, anything you want to talk about over on our Discord server, or tweet them at our tweeter. If you want to get to our Discord server, go to jbyc.net/discord, or just find the link on jbyc.net. And did you know that we aren't the ones who decide what the topics on that poll are going to be? You know who decides?
You decide.
That's right. Our after party chat picks all the items that go on the poll, and then everyone votes on the theme. So if you want to get something on the poll, come hang out live and stay for the after party. You can find our email and Twitter at jbyc.net. Watch us live on YouTube at youtube.com/jbyc show every Monday night, just like tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. Or listen to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. I'm Bobby. Below me is Ryan. And over there is EJ, the Edge. Say goodbye, guys, and everybody else hang out for the after party. See you later.
This is loud.
After party time. Who's ready to party? Who's ready to party? You ready to party?
Party time!